And since you're all about the age of where you still would call people Mr. and Mrs. back then, I'd like you to think of their last name and the letter of that last name. Do you have that in your head now? Okay, think of a teacher. It was really great. It doesn't have to be an art teacher. For you, think of their last name and think of the first letter of their last name. You have it? Okay, I want you to go to that wall and find that letter and put your finger on that letter. Go. Go find that letter on that wall. The first letter of a teacher that really influenced your life that was wonderful. I'll do it too.
Okay. All right, making my job hard. It's all right.
Oh my gosh.
I'm recording.
Somebody help me find the J. I need a J.
There's a J down here.
Is there a J down there?
Yeah.
Okay, we gone. We need a J. Where's the J? Here. Objective. J.
Shout out their name. 1, 2, 3. So I just really wanted you just to move your bodies for a second.
Whole brain trickery.
You guys have been looking at PowerPoints with have pictures of children and art for 2 days. So I'm going to try to make this short and sweet, and it's mostly what's going to be up here are images, so there's not a lot of words. So just sit back and use your eyes and your minds. Okay, this is called the peculiar combination, and I'm going to read it because I don't think I could get you out quickly if I just talked. So I wrote it and I timed it so it would be quick. All right, the peculiar combination. What I love about tag teachers, what I love about you, people, sitting in this audience is that you listen to children, you listen to teenagers, you listen to one another, and you take what others have to say to heart, and you let it transform your curriculum. Like the most dynamic and rollicking gospel choir, your artistic work as a teacher is one of call and response. John Dewey said this better: we do something to a thing, and then it does something to us in return. Such is the peculiar combination. When you do something, you receive something back, and if you respond to it and reflect on it, you learn. The thing Dewey is referring to can be the artwork, the art materials, the student, the teacher, the colleague, the artist, the idea, and so on. That's why I like contemporary art. Despite how museums and galleries present it, contemporary art is about call and response. It isn't about a wine and cheese gallery, white box removed from the real world with titles called Untitled. It's about a conversation with life. So I wonder why we spend so much time using the same modernist artists with our students, like Van Gogh, Monet, Seurat, O'Keeffe, Picasso, and Pollock, and the other top 10 artists of the previous centuries, when we could be teaching them more about contemporary artists from our century. Don't get me wrong, I love these guys. But I ask you, since TAB is radical and provocative, you guys are, today in 2014, why not use more artists who are radical and provocative in 2014, and not just folks who are radical and provocative in 1875, 1912, and 1953. I know many of you already use contemporary artists, and so I might just be preaching to the choir, but this is just sort of a love song to children and those artists and their interaction together. Here's just a short litany of these people. I love them partly because children I taught also love them. Children love them because their art does things that children do every day, like dress up like vending machines, like play hide and seek, like make superhero costumes, great feats in superhero costumes. Experiment with spitting liquids onto various objects and persons. Impersonate royalty and then boss people around. So these guys, John Rubin, one of my favorite artists, he had actors dress up like the Queen and Prince of, I don't remember where they were from.
Denmark?
Of Denmark, yeah. And then you could go up to them and they will protest what you want for them. So these are all some of the protests people had them write on their signs. Because kids and contemporary artists play restaurant. This is the same artist who has sort of a food wrap window restaurant that changes themes, and it's always connected to a country who is in conflict with the United States. And play restaurant again. And this is the same artist who mimicked a fancy restaurant in Oakland called Le Cheval. And for a weekend, he created a restaurant called The Horse across the street and tried to just make it look exactly like a pop-up restaurant that copied Le Cheval. And so he would have people come in and then they would order from the same menu, and he would jack his soup run over and carry out, and then he'd take it to this, and then open it on plates. And draw with sidewalk chalk.
Woohoo!
Write with sidewalk chalk. Build dollhouses. Take their toys to other people's house to play with. This was a house that Asario took from house to house. Construct forts and fortresses inside and outside. I love these. She made these little islands you could go on. Play in the bathtub. And that's only like 2 of the things she's done in bathtubs. Make pretend cash. Make pretend credit cards. I remember doing that. Play with bugs. This is my new favorite contemporary artist, Nina Kachaturian. You guys heard of her? So she mended these spider webs, broken spider webs. She mended them with thread and then did that over a period of time and documented it. Play with bugs in unethical ways that would upset her mother. So these are caterpillars that she's arranged. Play with bathroom objects when your mom's not looking. She goes to airport bathrooms and photographs herself using the paper and emulates Northern Renaissance portraiture. Just go to her website. Just go to her website. I just love her. And do other things you're not supposed to do. Okay. When museum and galleries, when the museum and gallery elite say that children can't understand contemporary art, I have been in those rooms with those people. I guess they don't remember what it was like to be 5 years old or 15 years old. I also suspect that they haven't read any children's literature in a long time. I love contemporary artists because they also do things that happen in children's books. The children's book authors get it. They get the idea of posting provocative and startling public notices for social change. You guys remember this one? Yeah, changed his life. Kept on Pickford dying. Charlotte did it, and so does Jenny Holzer. Children's authors get the idea of using shoes for things they are unintended for. Hippie Longstocking gets it, and so does Julia Mandel. These are the chalk shoes. So you can make maps. Children's authors get the idea of making teeny tiny worlds out of the big world objects. Little Arietti gets it, and so does Slinkachu. And Chris Burden, that we saw yesterday, and Liliana Porter. I've just discovered her. I really like her work. the idea of covering the world with polka dots. Does anybody remember this book? This will age me, yeah. The naughty magical bear gets it, so does Kusama. And more polka dots, like her. Children's authors get the idea of creating bizarre contraptions. Of course, Dr. Seuss gets it. And so does Amy Young. And this actually is a hydroponic plant watering system that works. Children's authors get the idea of having noisy parades with obnoxious, impossible instruments. And so does Alora and Kadazea. So this is this motorcycle that's got a trumpet on the back. And all three of these people get the idea of creating trumpet-infused architecture. Trumpets come on. And this takes me back to John Dewey, the John Dewey quote, because I think that there is a magical calm response when we not only offer students real choice, but when we introduce them to contemporary artists. Then we start to think of art supplies as something even more than clay and cardboard and paint, but also art supplies as the whole entire universe, including bathtubs and trumpets and spider webs. And when you and your students are immersed in the practice of contemporary artists, you start thinking of displaying artwork outside of art show settings. Display suddenly becomes an artistic choice and not an afterthought, and documentation gets really crucial, as you guys already know. Each of these student works that I'm showing, started with a conversation about a particular contemporary artist. It was an invitation to work in their practice. It was a choice, and some children took their choice. So in these slides, when it says inspiration, that's just the name of the artist that we were looking at. Most of these are from my camp, School of the Poetic City. Letting go of possession of the object and seeing art as a gift to anonymous benefactors. Did I say that word right?
Benefactors.
Thank you, Katie Taft. Is a contemporary art practice. And maybe the photograph of the work is the work that goes home to parents, rather than just the object itself, so that the physical object can live on to enchant the real and regular old world. So we find the trash, we make the art in the studio, and then we replace it back where the trash was as a transformed object, which is what Graham Sullivan does. Here's just a few more things. There's just like this pokey thing coming out of the building, and this little girl wanted to put her painting there, so yeah. Magnets. They named these statues. The kids already draw with chalk and they already draw shadows, but it's nice to point out that grown-ups do that too. It's nice to make that connection. So last summer we really got into these train figures and did a lot of work. This was just like, everybody wanted to do this. It wasn't even, it was like, again and again and again, and they would set things up. And sometimes they photographed them, and sometimes I photographed them. This little boy, this is his photograph of a guy carrying, the figure had little buckets, and then he just like cut this straw in half and put it in a cistern, something that had water, and then photographed it. And this was set up by a little girl, and I photographed this one. There was an abandoned building near our base camp. And so we photographed, we walked around and we asked if they wanted to fix up any buildings. And so this was one of them. So these are sort of ideas they had for making the building beautiful. It says, yeah. And then they posted it on the building. Okay. So I'd like to end with a story from my summer camp. It's a way for me to explain how the poem response involving kids and contemporary art pushed me down a deep and wonderful rabbit hole. It was a really hot day, and we were at the Denver Art Museum. We let the campers get into the fountains. Audrey, like many children, started to make body prints. She got wet, she laid down, she got up, and she made 3 different body prints until she was satisfied. I would love for the standards and assessment people to have seen this. This is rigorous and authentic arts assessment. She developed her own criteria and standards and persisted making many drafts until she had the perfect evidence outcome that matched her meticulous criteria. By the way, you can see this kind of engaged assessment every day at the local pool. It also works with snow angels. Anyway, Audrey makes this body print. She is thrilled at her final product. As a believer in the transient nature of contemporary art, I have my camera attached to my body and ready to shoot. What I'm going to say next is something I am passionate about. The body print isn't only a process. This is a product that can stand up to the art standards. It is just made with a transient medium. If I had to answer to a principle, the photograph would be my evidence. Okay, back to call and response. By making this print, Audrey made the call. I made the response. Wow, whose work does this remind me of? Whose work does this remind you of? I make a mental note. I'll show her Amy Goldsworthy's Green Shadow body prints the next day. We walk back to our home base of our art camp, and Audrey joins 2 other girls who start to draw smiley faces on the ground the entire block, 10 blocks back that we walked. And I have just a very short video of this. And they were doing this, and I was like, what are they doing? What are they doing?
Getting up.
10 city blocks. Constant. Did not stop. Okay, right? What? And my daughter was helping at the camp, and I said, just film them. I don't care. Just film them. I gotta get this one. I don't know what they're doing. Just film it. And then I have another film we'll talk about. I don't have that today, but so they're doing this. You know, draw, run, draw, run, draw, run. And Audrey joined them, and so there's 3 of them. And it looked absolutely exhausting and unnecessarily grueling, but the physical marathon, it was part of the work. It wasn't just, there was something on the ground. It wasn't just, we're doing this thing. It was like, we're doing something really, really hard. And that was part of the conceptual piece of the work. And that was a product. I consider that a product. And I'm using that word because I feel like we have to use some of the words that the assessors and the principals, and you know, we gotta, I'll play their game, but I'll do it radically, right? Like what Arnie Abram calls radical compliance. You know, sneaky, and I'll just do it. So they didn't let up. Again, they made the call, I made the response. Whose work does this remind me of? I made a mental note to show them William Pope's work tomorrow. He crawled the length of Manhattan in a Superman suit. And it took like a long time to do that. There seems to be a connection here. It also reminds me of the artist Gary Stetzer, where he draws a chalk line from his studio to his school. I don't have an image of that. So we got back to the destination, and the drawings got more detailed. It's interesting. When we got on the block, they started to add teeth and hair, and they took more time. And then at the very, very end, the 3 of them wanted to do a whole body and a face and a whole thing. I'm like, great, go for it. So everybody else went inside, and these girls stayed outside and drew this thing. And as they're working this final drawing, this is what I heard. Audrey, who was drawing the head, said, "Is it a boy or a girl?" Emmy's drawing the feet said, "A boy. He has got boy pants on." But it has girl hair, Audrey insisted. The girls argued about its gender for a while. Kate, who was drawing in the middle, finally said, "My mom says some women have a little bit of man in them. That's why they have mustaches." Audrey says, "Okay, then it should be a girl-boy." And he says, "Yeah, a girl-boy. What should we name him/her?" Audrey looks at the sign of the church where we are based. St. Andrew's. Andrew. Oh, that's a boy name. Still, I think we should do like him/her. They keep saying slash. Him/her. I think we should name her after the church. Okay, I got it. Andrewa. Let's name he/she Andrewa. And they all agreed. Andrewa, the first woman to have a mustache. That was their signature, and then they signed their names down here. You can hardly read it, but finished, and we're inside the building. I went back outside to the drawing, and it stared back at looking at me like the goddess it was. Calm response again. Whose work does this remind me of? Wait, this whole thing started with Amy Goldsworthy. It moved through William Pope, and now it's making me think of Anna Mendieta. Tomorrow I'll tell the girls about Anna also. We started the day with a talk about a shadow tracer, Ellis Gallagher, and somehow Audrey takes his practice to the land of two more artists. Yes, we all know that children are generative and divergent in their thinking, but I argue that prior contemporary art instruction, just telling them about these people, help facilitate this as well. They're just used to like playing with the natural, just playing with the city, right? The way a contemporary artist would. As Eleanor Duckworth says, in order for children to have wonderful ideas, they need matter to think about. I believe that taking time to look at and talk about art should be done with the same enthusiasm we give to organizing our stations of art materials and demos of art-making skill. And it just doesn't have to be us, wah, 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 talking. It could just be like spreading out some images of Ellis Gallagher at the table. You know, it's just any way we want to present these artists. Why? Because ideas build ideas. When we consistently look deeply at other artists, our creative wells stay full. 6 months later, I'm browsing through the internet, and I see Anna Mendieta's work, Facial Hair Transplants, 1972. And they weren't actual transplants, but this was Mendieta playing with identity and feminism again. I hadn't known about this work before. I didn't know her work very well. And then, of course, what did I think of? I thought of Andrula, and the first one to ever have a mustache. Good grief, it was just quite an unsettling coincidence, and it will speak me out a bit. And it made me think. We are on a mysterious, and I hope you don't mind my saying, a spiritual journey when we go deeper with children as partners, as co-creators. You guys do this every day. I know you have your own stories. Document them. Share them. We need one another's stories to carry on, but we also need hard documentation of this elusive and profound work of our students so that administrators can connect the dots between this robust work and the state standards. It all connects, especially with TAB. It all connects. We just have to make those connections for those administrators because they're not going to get it at all. It looks like a bunch of people pasting papers on a building. As TAB teachers, you're doing some of the most important work of any adults in the universe. I think you're teaching people to be creative cultural makers, and I believe this with all my heart. And I really want you to stay in business. So just connect those dots for those administrators. Fight the good fight, persist in the good work, and document like crazy. You can choose any of the GLEs from high school, 5th grade. It's like, they do them all the time, every day. I don't even know why they did kindergarten to 12th grade. I feel like it happens constantly. We do something to a thing. Oh, I have a couple more of these. I mean, you can just you can match these up so easily. Just, it happens. And we just need to instruct to the administration about what's going on. Talk about intent and purpose, right? We do something to a thing, and then it does something to us in return, such as the peculiar combination. John Dewey. Thanks, you guys.